Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry we're a little late tonight, but we are glad to be with you. So, we have an exciting topic tonight. Something really hot, huh? Or is it too soon? Too soon to be
Too
joking
soon.
about our hot topic. Um, but we're going to talk about DEI. We're going to talk about California fires. We're going to talk about Facebook announcing that they're no longer third party checking. I thought they were saying that they weren't doing that before, or whatever it is that they were saying. We're about to get into it. Kevin, will you just open a word of prayer and we'll get right into it?
Indeed. Father, we thank you and we praise you for this day, this time, this awesome time and season that you've given us the privilege to participate in. Your word declares that this is the day you have made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. We rejoice in 2025. We rejoice in this time that we can thrive. We rejoice, Lord, in everything that you're doing. And everyone that will see this video ongoing, we ask that you would bless them, encourage them, and encourage us what to say, what to cover, what to, how to think about these things that we'll be bringing forth today, and allow your perfect will to be done in each and every one of our lives. We thank you and we praise you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All
Amen.
right. Well, I mean, you just cannot even go on social media without seeing everything about the California fires. I mean, just everywhere, even here in Kenya, everything is pulling up. No matter where I go, they're talking about that. Um, when we were discussing what topics we were going to talk about today, Kevin, you had brought up just about DEI policy and how that is basically what we're seeing play out here with these California fires. And to my chagrin, I'm like, what do you mean DEI policies? I don't understand. So, for those of us who don't understand, Kevin, lay it out for us how DEI policies are affecting what we're seeing in the LA fires.
All right. All right. So everybody knows what DEI stands for: diversity, equity, inclusion. It's a euphemism for being able to just plot people wherever you think that they're underrepresented within an organization. So we're no longer looking at meritocracy. In other words, people being placed in position based on merit, excellence, and principles and moral principles that would allow them to take those positions. Instead, DEI says, no, we don't have any African Americans in these positions, in these higher positions, in these organizations. So we're just going to plop people there. They don't have to have proven background, competency, understanding. They can just be put there. So that's what DEI does, based on equity. Equity is, um, in my book DEI in 3D, it tells you exactly what equity is. And at the end of the day, after you unravel everything, you go through the roots and wherefores and whys and wherefores about why DEI even exists at all. You recognize that equity is basically it's tantamount to communism. And so same principles from the same player, that would be Karl Marx, that actually, allow, encourages schemes like this. Okay. So, so here's the issue with DEI in this situation. So when people are not put in positions of power that require competency, skills, knowledge, foresight, um, and intentionality, then you put people in these positions that are essentially, yeah, I guess, kind of lazy. And because they don't have the capacity of foresight and anticipation of potential breakdowns, because they've never had jobs like this before, then you get into situations where they're unprepared or underprepared for these major emergencies that could happen. California, especially Southern California, is now suffering because of the lack of preparedness, the lack of understanding, the lack of competencies at every level down there. So you have Karen Bass. So Karen Bass is really unaccomplished. Karen Bass is the mayor of Los Angeles. She's unaccomplished. She's ex-congresswoman, but she's unimpressive. Not known to be, the smartest one amongst folks in Congress, and definitely known to be a communist. Communist sympathizer. Went to Castro's Cuba, worship Castro, basically. So she's that kind of a person. Okay. Then when she gets in office, unprepared, never ran a city before, has no understanding about budgets at that level. She did budgets within the confines of Congress, which is what, 200 and what is it, 335 people or something like that. So her budget understanding, her budget capacity is very, very limited. And so she gets in this position of power, and she's never run a city before. She's never worked for a city before. She's never managed a city budget before.
How did she get into the power in the first place? I mean,
she got elected.
I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate here because but getting elected does not mean that the people had a DEI policy. So what I'm saying, so are you saying that
So
she was put forth on DEI policy?
So if you think about
go ahead, Neil.
No, if you think about it, all of California are appointed, right? I mean, if you think about why did Kamala Harris become Attorney General? Why did she become senator, right? She didn't work her way to that. They were appointed. There's a group of the cabal, the Democratic cabal says, oh, these are the people we're going to let run. You're the chosen one. You're going to get a run. And then they dissuaded everybody else from running. And if you think about it, in California, if you're a Republican, you pretty much can't run. So everybody is chosen by the elites. And if you're a Democrat who runs against what the elites want you to do or does what the elites doesn't want you to do, you'll never run again in the state. So it's all appointed. Somebody in the top says, oh, well, we need a black person here. We're going to pick this one. It's all appointed. It's not the people choosing. The people don't really have a choice.
So it's diversity, equity, inclusion in the Karen Bass sense is she's a black, female,
lesbian.
She was married earlier on, but she thinks she checks all of these boxes. So when they run her, they put all the money behind her because she's the chosen one, as Neil pointed out, from the Democrat cabal that actually holds the power within California. So they pour all the money into her campaign and they get her there. They use her cachet from her name recognition as a congresswoman. And so she's there. So she's not there based on merit or competency. She's never done this before, ever.
So she's never done anything before, right?
Never done it. She's unaccomplished. She's not impressive. So essentially what they do is they run game on the electorate, the citizenry, and they say, look, this she's a congresswoman. She's good, boy. She's a black woman too. She's powerful. So that's how she got there. Now, once she gets in, she exercises her powers and puts in the quintessential DEI hire, white, lesbian, unaccomplished, fire chief. So this lady comes up through the ranks as a fire person and then is elevated to fire chief. Now, she's there because she's a lesbian female. And she knew that she was there because she's a lesbian female, because she says, we're going to double down on DEI policies. I don't know if you guys saw some of her videos. And she says, we're going to make sure that the fire department is significantly more women, female. And we're going to make sure that we recruit many more females than males and actually put them in positions of power. This is what she said. And she understands diversity, equity, inclusion. This is what she's advocating for. So then she hires 2 more lesbians that are associate or lieutenant fire department heads. and then also hires a black female DEI hire that was going to go out and then fire all of your straight white firemen that were on the force. This one black female would be able to subjectively come up with a criteria that whether they're white supremacist or racist in any way, and then she had the capacity to fire him. So the whole thing around this fire department is a fiasco. I mean, this doesn't happen. It's not even legal. I mean, it seems like there would be so many potential EEOC lawsuits and just lawsuits against federal law, everything that could come as a result of now this stuff is coming out.
It's as if you had a bunch of 10-year-olds and you handed them over a department that was really important, and they didn't realize that their people's lives were in play. They didn't realize. They were just like, oh, I want this friend or that friend or whatever. And they had their little petty little fights. Had nothing to do with competency at all. It's all has to do with DEI. Oh, they're in our band, they're in our group, and let's get rid of these good guys. If you ever want to see a story of this playing out, read Atlas Shrugged, Ayn Rand. That's exactly what happened. She predicts this 50 years ago. What was it, 80 years ago? She predicts this entire thing, not with DEI, but with other sorts of incompetence. But it's the same thing.
And so what we have then is that fire department as one issue. Let me just finish up this last part. And then they hired this other lady from Pacific Gas and Electric, which is our major electric company here in California, who was making $400,000 or so. She was an executive at PG&E, but she never did water management, specific, scientific water management and how to manage water through, certain types of pipes, certain types of from certain types of reservoirs to make sure they get to all of the hydrants. This is not her core skill set. Now, she may have worked at an energy company, but the water management is really much more scientific than just making sure you turn on valves and let the water go. I mean, there's quite a bit of stuff up here you got to have to kind of make it all work. They hire this lady and they double her salary essentially. She's $750,000 to $760,000, and she says, "Well, we didn't have the reservoirs weren't full, and we couldn't get it to the hydrants because, when we, think about these situations like this, we look at we look at covering wildfires in the wild, not in an urban setting." So she didn't even think it was important that urban hydrants have water in them for whatever reason. I mean, who would?
Then she cut a lot of the budget too, right?
Well, okay, so then that gets back to Mayor Bass. So let me lay out the whole. I know, we got Regina chomping at the bit to get in here. So let me lay out a little bit more of the scenario. So then you got Mayor Bass, who cuts the fire budget by almost $20 million, so a little bit over $17 million, just recently. She just did it. Then you have, Governor Gavin Newsom, who is the quintessential, in my opinion, DEI hire, and I would call him a DEI hire. Some people say, "What do you mean? He's white, heterosexual, male. How is he a DEI hire?" Because this is mental incapacity is also an equity issue, and so people look at this guy. They say, "Well, okay, he has a slick hair, he has a shiny teeth, he looks good, he looks the part. He may be dense up here, but based on equity." Why would I put a Republican or why would I put somebody who may be more competent to run governorship when based on equity, we can get brain dead people in this position and let them run with it. It's cool. And so this governor, he's cut like over $100 million from fire departments across the entire state. Maybe it's 300 million. It's multiple hundreds of millions of dollars. So you got him, you got Karen Bass, you got this whole fiasco with the fire department. You got the water, lady who they just hired for $750,000, and all of it works together to mean utter destruction.
Let me add one more thing to it. In fact, then you have the fact that they're sending almost 50% of our water out to sea because of the Delta smelt. So all our reservoirs are empty. You know, like we'll have massive rains, and then they'll say, "Oh, we have a drought." Why? Because they're sending all the water out to sea, folks. There is no good reason for anyone in California to have a water drought. There's miles and miles and miles of snowpacks up there,
That's right.
and it's all coming down, and it's all going straight out to sea. Right? This is nonsense, and it's all done because the farmers don't have enough water, and the people don't have enough water, and obviously the fire hydrants and the reservoirs don't have water to feed the fire. So it's all tied together. Not only I wouldn't just say DEI, it's all Democrats. Let's be honest. It's all this Democrat socialist thinking. So here's what I always say: if it's so stupid, it must have been planned. So now, did each of these individual DEIs hire? No, they're too stupid to do that. There's somebody up here. Pick who you want, you know, Rothschild, Soros, whatever you want. There's somebody up there. I don't know who it is yet, but there's somebody up there who wants this to happen. And you put all that into play, and you go, "Wow, that's very interesting."
Yep. So so Gavin Newsom did this restructuring of the water systems 8-10 years ago, something like that.
And we passed a bond for $3 billion to protect the water
to protect the fish that no one has seen. This fish, the Delta smelt, in over a decade. We haven't found one single fish like that in over a decade. It's like they're gone. They were here but they're not. No one has ever been able to see one over the past decade. You haven't seen one. So the water's being immediately put out to the ocean. No reservoirs are collecting water, or very little of collection. And this whole thing was done from a brain dead Governor Newsom, Gavin Newsom, who is an ideological, moron, I guess, because he's looking at green initiatives. As a matter of fact, he came out yesterday, as well as Karen Bass, smiling at the cameras, talking about, look, well, this is all climate change. We see it now. And so this is a major problem. They won't even admit their grotesque failures. They're saying the whole thing, the empty hydrants, the empty reservoirs, the ladies who were unprepared, everything is done for climate change. That's why. Go ahead, Virginia. You have some questions. Come on.
You look stunned.
I'm flabbergasted. I am beyond stunned. So, okay. So first what we got to do is we need to just let everyone know that Kevin, California, and you've lived there all your life, right, Kevin? California?
Yes. All my life.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And Neil, you've lived in California for how long? How long, Neil?
40 years. 40 years.
Okay. So these are not individuals who are, sitting on the East Coast pointing fingers, right? These are people who have lived and have a long history with the state. So where to begin with all of this? You until you laid it out, right? Had no clue. Just absolutely. You see little clips here and there on shorts and stuff like that on YouTube, and you're like, okay, yeah, maybe. But you guys have completely laid out the utter foolishness that has happened. And what's unfortunate is that people have lost their lives. They've lost their homes.
They've lost everything.
It's not even that.
I just want to put in, tragedy is a lot of these insurance companies are not going to pay out because they're going to go bankrupt. So these people may have actually lost everything. I don't know if the state, the state will come in and say, oh, we'll do this, we'll do that. I don't know how much the state's going to give them. It is the state's fault. Let's be honest. It's also the city of LA's fault. I mean, city of LA's fault. But where did that go? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll get to that, work my way down to all of those things, including insurance. But just the first part of putting people in place and not really realizing that you have it's not a Democratic issue really, and on who they elected to be the mayor, right? Because it's kind of like what we saw nationally happen with the VP being put forth and no
Yeah.
one else was able to run, and then the Democratic Party just had to support her. So you're saying that for mayor and those type of positions, what you have is a Democratic Party picking people, putting all the money behind them so that nobody else, there's really no democratic choice for the people in California to pick. I mean, if you only have one person who's put forth, that's really your only option. And then when you talk about how she systematically, hold on, Kevin, I see you, how she systematically then, as mayor, put in her friends or, people who look like her, think like her, regardless of their capability of running those departments, you put those people in. And so, like you alluded to, Neil, it's like 10-year-old saying, oh, I want my friend over there because she's wearing a red dress and I just love red. And so, yes, we're all just going to go together. And so, if anyone were to just now stand back and look at the org chart, right, of people that have been hired and put in place and wonder if they're competent. And so, listen, I get that, women, Black people, Black women who feel like DEI was a good thing because now the community's going to get an opportunity and there's no more glass ceiling, right? Like we can get through. But the problem with that is, although on the outside it may look yummy and wonderful, is we don't really think about competence. And no one's trying to say that you're stupid as much as maybe you're just really not qualified to run in that position.
Right.
And there's a big difference between calling you stupid and you being competent to hold that position, right? And again, it's kind of this thing we saw nationally with the VP, right? With VP Harris, simply because she was a woman and she was of color, and we're like, well, it's time, right?
Right.
No, that can't vote someone in. Now, we did that with Obama, right? And we have history now that we can look back and say, okay, we tried that. We had a historic
let me add one
moment,
thing about Obama.
but did that really?
What's interesting about Obama? What's interesting about Obama is the Republicans did the exact same thing that we did with Kamala. They did with Kamala. We ran two incompetents against Obama, two horrible rhinos against Obama.
Oh my gosh!
Right? So we picked, quote unquote, picked those people because the Republican establishment decided this was the right one, right? Mitt Romney and John McCain, again, two incompetent rhinos, not at all conservative in any way, shape, or form. I despise both of them, right? But they were picked. And I don't know who's making the picking and the choosing. At least it was a bit more fair because the people picking and choosing were actually just advertising and promoting these candidates, whereas in the Democrats' place, that's all they had. You didn't even get to pretend that somebody else was the first.
But continue your thought, Regina.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. So if we look at the experiment that was a big debacle with VP Harris, we are now seeing a microcosm of what's been going on in California for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting that she's from California, but we'll go there another day. So we have this DEI kind of picking our friends and putting people in place who look good in front of the camera because it's California. We always have to look good. You California people are a little too bougie for the rest of us, and you should defect from the U.S. and become your own country if you want. But we're going to keep you. So we have that whole DEI thing, got that. And even with the person who was elected over the water, that's just from the water to the fire chief, then the fire chief who she hired underneath her to the mayor. You have this kind of straight line. You don't even have to curve or anything. Like it's all right there in your face. And I feel really bad. I
Yeah,
feel really
it's terrible.
bad for
No,
California. It
yeah,
is
and
horrible. Go
it's
ahead,
really
guys.
sad. I have to add one more thing. There was a newspaper reporter that not newspaper, a news reporter that was in some parking lot in this, and they asked a guy, they were asking somebody some questions, and this guy, it was on the Babylon Bee snippet. So if you, not the bee, not the bee, not the Babylon Bee, but not the bee. So the real stuff, right? And this guy walks by and he starts yelling at the reporter, and the reporter says, "What was that?" He goes, "It's all the lesbians' fault." And we thought that was the biggest, funniest joke because it was like, gosh, what a bigot this guy is, right? And then now a week later, it's like, wait a minute, maybe he knew more than we thought he knew, right? Because that's that whole structure. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being a lesbian. I don't think it's moral, but I'm in public life. That's fine. Do what you want. I mean, in politics, do what you want. But it was funny that it was this little clique of people that were hiring their friends because they were lesbian. And that would be like me hiring someone because, hiring someone because he's black or somebody because he's Indian. You can never do that when people's lives are at stake. That's
That
like
was
going and picking a doctor. Oh, I want a doctor who's black to do my heart surgery.
right.
Good grief. I mean,
Yeah.
that's fine if you're doing your own little company or, having your own store or something. But if you're doing something that where life is on the line.
So let me add a little bit. Thank you. That's actually right, Neil. Thank you, and Regina. Let me add a little bit more color to this. So I think Regina, you said so. She really was unopposed, or it really wasn't a choice. She was opposed. She had a couple of Democrats. She had a lot of other people running that were, uh, but because of the money behind her, and because they know that if you run a black Democrat anywhere in California, it's a wrap. They're going to get it. That's it. Californians, for whatever reason, they tune out of principles, policies, morals, logic, rationality. They tune out, and they just go, "Oh, Democrat." Oh. It's just programmed. It's like Pavlov's dog. It's crazy. So so they chose her. Now, even though she was outspent by a guy who he's worth several hundred million to $1 billion, but he's done budgets. He's run major stuff, right? And he outspent her by 11-1. So they didn't even have to put a whole lot of money behind her. They put enough behind her as a Democrat running in Los Angeles, and she won. Now, the other thing is I think you said something about these people aren't crazy. This is competency. So that's the thing that really hurts, and it hurts especially women. These are not idiots. These are women that, if they were properly positioned in a role or a job that they can do, they would probably do an exceptional job. But when we put people, it could be women, it could be anybody, in a job that they're really not prepared or not competent, have no track record, no history of, but we just put them in position, we're setting them up for failure, and we're setting them up to look like a bunch of idiots. This is unfair. Why would we set people up to look stupid? These are not stupid people. But DEI as a scheme, as an ideological policy that people go after, makes people look like idiots when they fail. They do. So we wonder, well, these women, why would anybody put? Look at her. She's she's not even physically fit. Well, people and say other things that are mean, to make it seem like
Mm-hmm.
this is ridiculous and they should be there. we shouldn't even be. This is human to human. We're all human beings, and God has given us, a certain amount of skills, talents, and abilities to flourish in whatever it is that He called us to do, or whatever vein or lane that we think we're competent to do. But it's unfair. It's literally unfair when we take people who are really
Mhm.
not competent, not working in their lane, not working in their sweet spot, and we put them in a position, and then they fail miserably and publicly. It really is a
Mhm.
sad story. Not only for the homeowners, and that's
Mhm.
horrible, atrocious, but it's also sad for these women, because now they're they're the poster children for DEI and what it means when it fails horribly. And so, to give you one other little thing that happened, the fire chief, her name is Kristen. Her lieutenant is Kristen, and her other lieutenant is Kristen. So she not only went for other lesbians, people of the same subculture that she's a part of, but she went and hired people with the exact same name. I mean, so this is unbelievably
To the
stupid.
red dress.
Yeah, I
It's
do that.
so bad. I mean, it's so bad. So yeah, this is all a fiasco. Now, what they also determined is that a lot of these people who are street dwellers, the unhoused, we know the homeless, so they're living in the streets, and a lot of them do these fires. They have these bonfires, and they have so um and so they said, look, some of these could have been precipitated from homeless people. I'm not sure about that. I don't, Palisades. I don't know how many homeless they have there, or what. But they said that's an issue, and then they said also what happened with the budget, why they were trying to cut so desperately, is all the illegals. They're putting them up these hotels in Los Angeles and these other places. They're feeding them and putting them up. So they had to cut the budget from somewhere. So they're cutting fire and police and getting rid of the white firemen. It's just unbelievable. And so now you have this fire department. They lowered the what DEI does is it says, well, since our standards are so high, that's what precludes women and women of color and other people from going and really excelling. So what we're going to do is lower the standards. So they lowered the physical fitness standards, and so more women could actually accomplish. Now, what they're finding is some of these women don't have the stamina to go up some of these mountainsides. They don't have the stamina or the fortitude, and they can't carry the heavy hoses with water coming through them up some of these steep terrain to try to get to these better homes, these bigger homes and whatnot. So they find that's also a major issue. They're having to call these other guys back and say, look, so what some of the homeowners have done in these major hills is they've hired their own private fire departments, really people who were fired from LA Fire Department, and they were fired because they had a COVID standard that if you don't get vaxxed, we're going to let you go. So they got fired. So these guys now are guarding these major palatial estates down in some of these parts that are, at risk of being burned down, and charging $50,000 a day to, $2,000 an hour to make sure these estates don't get burned down. But these are people who have come out of the LA Fire Department, and they have this little cadre of others who have come out of the LA Fire Department. They know fire, they know hillsides, and they're doing that, the mitigation around these certain estates that want to pay them, $50,000 a day. And so that's also a thing. It's like, if you're worth $100 million or more, then you're going to pay that. But what about the people that, look, they put every dime in their house, and they can't afford $50,000 a day? I mean, and not only that, they don't even know if their insurance is going to cover it, because the insurance gave them a notice right before the end of the year saying we're not going to cover fire. So it's kind of unfair, but then it's kind of just the way it is. I mean, people that have more resources are going to pay. People who don't, you just kind of lost out. But that's all of this is going on right now, and it's just terrible. It's only 1 week. Literally, it's been like 6 or 7 days. and this whole thing is unraveling
Mhm.
over what, 3 to 5,000 houses, 30,000 or so people displaced. I mean, 25 deaths. I mean, it's bad. It's very bad.
So let's talk about the insurance, because I did see some shorts and some things across social media. Is that legal? I mean, we're not lawyers here, so but the discussion, yes, insurance companies now are not liable to pay those, and so the tax structure, right? I was listening to an announcer kind of discuss this, right? All those people whose homes have burned down that were worth millions, that is tax money. And if insurance is not going to cover to rebuild, will those people come back? And then what is that
Well,
neighborhood? What is that community gonna look like? And think about all the construction companies and um, just what it's gonna take to rebuild that. Because I don't know if you can, even in a year, 2 years, rebuild that back to what it was. I have a feeling it's going to take a lot longer. I mean, look how long it took for New Orleans to come back after
well,
the flooding.
let me, yeah, let me
Go ahead,
jump in
Neil.
here. So here's the deal. I think many insurance companies for the bigger people probably will cover it. I'm thinking more of the more lower end people who got the cancellation notice that fire, because your insurance company can say we're not going to cover fire, right? You're on your own for fire, but we'll cover theft or whatever, right? So they can do that ahead of time. They can't do it after the fire. Now, after the fire, they may have some ways of getting around it by saying, "Oh, we'll do a reduced amount of payment." I don't understand how that works, but here's the thing that we should remember. One, um, if private companies are involved in the rebuilding, it'll be built within 6 to 8 months. That's not a problem. If the government's involved, it's going to take 10 years. In New
Yeah.
Orleans, the government was rebuilding a lot of this, and that's why it took so long. I remember there was I think it was Matt Damon or some celebrity. It was like years after New Orleans had been in the flood, and he says, "What's going on?" He goes down there and he spends his own money, and they build something like in less than 6 months, right? He goes, "I don't understand what's going on." It's because the government is incompetent. They're incompetent to everything, especially, and they're definitely going to be incompetent about this. So, but luckily, I shouldn't say luckily, in many cases, this is going to be private parties. But here's the other thing and I don't want to throw it out too glibly, but it is a possibility that you'll get someone like BlackRock or somebody coming in, buying all these things at a discount, and then building their own houses in there. So in which case, that also brings you back to the conspiracy of, well, maybe this was a planned thing because they found a bunch of illegal aliens with that, at least one illegal alien with the little blowtorch that he was starting fires, and he had admitted to starting at least two of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. So let me add on to that. Gavin Newsom, Mr. Brain Dead, in my opinion, Gavin Newsom comes out today and says, "Oh, I have a Marshall Plan already. Palisades, we're going to rebuild. We're going to make it a smart city." He already has the blueprints. This shows you this is by design. He has the blueprints to overlay onto Palisades, those houses. Yeah. He says, we can build a smart city here. I've already got a Marshall Plan for Los Angeles. We're going to rebuild. It's going to be smooth. We already have a way to do this. Now, so you got to understand, Los Angeles didn't really have the real estate to pull off a smart city rebuild. Unless you go way out, east. You got to keep going Inland Empire. You got to go up. In Los Angeles proper, they didn't really have a place to do it. Unless inconveniently, you have a fire and it burns everything up. Riddle me this. How in the world do you have what, let's call it a wildfire in an urban setting? I've never heard of such. Wildfires in the wild where you have a lot of brush and it's just constantly feeding off of the brush, the dead trees, the roots, and everything else. How in the world, when you have a cement jungle and asphalt between houses. How's that? I mean, you have some houses with, some, but you don't have like log cabins. I mean, you have houses with stucco and stuff, but it's not really primarily a lot of wood, exposed wood that's providing kindling to keep this thing going. So, and then in between the houses, the palm trees, the trees are still standing. There's no house, literally completely burned to ashes. But you got palm trees up and down the street still. I don't understand. I don't understand I don't know anything about gardening or but how do you have a tree that's the house in front of the house that's burned to ashes, and it's the blocks are still lined with trees? I don't understand. How does that happen?
So here's what just shocked me. How now we could really say to Newsom, that's too soon. How do you come out and your city is still on fire talking about you have blueprints to rebuild?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
That's a stupid. I mean, I am not qualified to be a governor of any state, but I can tell you with common sense, that's stupid.
Yeah.
How do you come out while your people are still burning, smoldering, and you say, I already have blueprints to rebuild? That just goes to show you just how ignorant. And you know what shocks me even more is, and I'm really saddened by this, I don't see our current administration present anywhere.
Biden called.
Right? I don't see them on the ground there. I don't see them talking and consoling.
Nope.
In fact, I saw a clip that just on Friday that Biden was saying he still could have won. And I'm just like, really? You have California, markedly so, one of the most beautiful states that we have. That coastline, that area, just beautiful. Burning.
Yeah.
And I do not see our VP Harris. This is your state. Why aren't you there in jeans and a cap, just comforting people? This is your state. This is your state.
No.
You should be
They put
there.
a call in. They put a call
nothing.
in, and that's it. And they haven't shown up. And not only that, but Biden, when he was about to do a press conference about it, he did an off-color joke. He said, "This press conference is going to be hot."
Yeah.
I mean, how do you joke about something like this? People are literally losing their lives and all of their livelihood. And you can't be presidential for just a few minutes and sincerely talk about, how your hearts go out to the people that have lost their lives and how you're putting all the resources behind getting this fire out. Nothing. Then, sort of the icing on the cake is they sold off, or they gave, not even sold off, they gave away a lot of their fire trucks to Ukraine a couple years ago when Karen Bass got in office.
Oh, and to add to that, Oregon sent 60 fire trucks down, and they held them in San Francisco to make sure they passed emissions. You got fire and smoke and pollution everywhere, and you're worried about 60 fire trucks passing emissions. If that fire truck had been put into service, it would have stopped more than all the emissions of all the fire trucks if it went just for a day.
Yeah, they were held up for quite some time. I don't even know if they let them go yet. But
I'm not sure what the status is.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the status is, but they held them up in San Francisco when they were on their way to try to help put out fire. 60.
So here's the question to Californians. Are you going to put up with this anymore? It's all in your hand. You have an election in 2 years and another election in 2 years from there. Are you going to do something about this, right?
Okay.
Are you going to take responsibility and realize that the Democrat Party is the one that's killing you?
Yeah.
The Democrat Party is why that's destroying California. Are you going to jump into DEI and all this stuff and focus more on transgenderism, or are you going to focus on lives? I mean, the government's there to protect lives. They're not there to give you money or give you opportunity. They're there to protect your life. That's all they're supposed to do. If you look at the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. I think we have completely annihilated this whole thing. We only have a few minutes left, and I do want us to move on. So DEI, even heard that Meta is dropping their DEI program.
Beautiful
Is this
thing.
a Trump effect?
It
Is
is.
this
It
a Trump
is.
effect?
It's a Trump effect.
When he came to visit Trump, after that meeting, he called his people. We're dropping all DEI, and we're taking all the tampons out the men's restrooms. We're stopping all the crazy, and we're going to stop censoring with our, community standard censor board or whatever it is they were doing. What was it? Some kind of they're fact checkers. So they stopped all of it. And I think Trump probably told him, look, I'm going to have you hanging off the rafters. I'm going to get you unless you start, reversing a lot of these things that have really hurt the American people of the past.
But understand, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg has become a conservative. No. Don't even think about that. He's just playing. If Hitler was in power, he would play Hitler.
He's playing.
There's no ideological change here. It's like, oh, so-and-so is in power. We're going to play there again. So he has no convictions, as far as I can tell. I hope I'm wrong.
I'm sure his board members told him, get on the plane, get to Mar-a-Lago. We don't want Trump and his guys to shut us down because of what we've been doing to the American people and on behest of the FBI and Biden and all the others. Doge and all these other folks are going to come after us. We don't want them to do to us what they've done, what they're trying to do to TikTok and all this other kind of stuff. Get out there, do a mea culpa, play the game, do whatever we got to do, but just get in good graces so we can keep this thing going. So it's a smart business decision. This is business. This is what you do. It's not an ideological decision. It's a business.
Yeah. Now, I didn't think he had changed his stripes at all.
Yeah.
I was just shocked. I guess I was, again, so shocked that it happened so quickly. There was nothing gradual, easing into anything. It was like, bam, this is what we're doing. And when you see his video, he's just sitting there talking. And of course, social point out that he's wearing a $100,000 watch, right? And it's just like, he doesn't care. This is, like you said, Kevin, it's just a game. It is not him changing heart or his concern about anything. But I think people on the left are probably more hurt than people on the right. People on the right are probably saying, finally, we're getting a breather. But I think the people on the left who idealized these type of individuals and organizations, I think they're just like, and if anything, they probably hate Trump more because of it, right? As if, because of Trump now, all these things are changing. But I guarantee, I almost want to guarantee that let's check with people in a year and see if they're not better off than they were this time, right? I mean, that's really going to be the real check for that is, are people going to be better off? And there's so much opportunity to, with the Trump effect, but just with the disruption, right? This whole word now, right? Disruptors and disruption and things that are happening. And so I want to take our last few minutes and kind of just talk about what we have planned as an organization, right? During this time of disruption and disrupting and charting this new path. And, for us, I don't know that it's really so much a new path because it's things that EBLM have been doing for the longest time. But I think now now just uh, like a pathway has been clear, and there's probably an opportunity to move forward and make changes. So let's
Yeah.
talk about the Institute for Family and Community Advancement, which is an outreach that EBLM is doing now. Well, we're launching it this year to really stand in the place within communities of color, within Black communities, because we can see from even the voter turnout that happened with Trump. We can see from the unmasking that people are really beginning to see identity politics, DEI, all the whole transgender thing that have really not played well for us. And many people have said it. They believe it was such a great thing, probably now in hindsight, that Trump didn't win. Right in 2020, we had this opportunity to really look under behind the curtain, and you really got a chance to see, okay, this is what you want. Look at what happens when you let it run rampant. And people are like, yeah, no, 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 yeah, no, I don't want that. And so, with the Institute of Family and Community Advancement, EBLM is now taking a real more national step as far as how we are looking to create an institute with chapters to challenge some of the issues that conventional, traditional organizations have kind of let drop down, like the NAACP, the National Urban League. Um, when they started, I don't doubt that there was very, very good need for them, that their intentions to help the community were there, but a lot of things have changed. So, Kevin, you say something about, why we're doing this move forward now.
Yeah, so there was a lot of momentum that was actually gained during this past election. We had a lot of people eyes opening. We had a lot of people recognize that they had been living euphemistically or metaphorically on the plantation, and they really wanted to be free. They recognized that the the rigidity around ideologies had really put them in a box, and they felt like they were restricted if they begin to think different or even want to be more independent minded. In this past election, they were castigated by family members and friends and other politicians, calling them Nazis and everything else. So those people really began to see that, look, this is dangerous for all of us to just have a collective groupthink type mentality. We need to move off of this. And they actually started to make decisions for themselves, more independent, more free thinking, and they moved. What I would say is they made a purposeful commitment to move off the plantation. Um, and so now they're living in their independence. But the trick is not to have this one data point, then kind of and think that, okay, they're free thinking and they're going to remain there. They're not typically. Typically, what people do is they continue to look at TV. Maybe some of the old patterns begin to emerge. They'll turn back on CNN or MSNBC. They'll start to receive the latest newsletter from NAACP and these other organizations, and their mindset will begin to shift again if we're not careful. What we're doing at EBLM is we're saying, look, we right now they're off the plantation. We want to make sure that they function in their freedom, that they have the capacity to maintain their freedom without feeling sort of drawn back into this old mindset. And the only way that the only way that they will legitimately change and remain changed is if they have an alternative. So what we're presenting is an alternative
Mm.
organization that is truly about civil rights and rights of in equal rights of all individuals. Um, and that's really committed to making sure that issues that are related to Black or ethnic communities, that they're principally and morally handled correctly, and not just
Mhm.
glommed on with some sort of Marxist scheme attached to them to make us somewhat feel better. So, we've created Institute for Family and Community Advancement as the alternative to NAACP, and that so we could stand up an organization that's really going to make a difference in the lives of ethnic communities and Black communities, especially.
Neil, you want to say anything?
No, not much. I mean, Kevin covered most of it, but I think the idea is like you got to do a reset. You can't go to the same old because they haven't done anything good for you. It's time to realize, just like the Democrats in California, we got to realize that some organizations aren't here to help you. They're only here to help themselves. And they're just bringing the same old incompetent leadership. So it's time for a new organization with a new leadership.
Yeah, and I think what we're presenting is, again, we want to appreciate work that has been done by these organizations when they started, right? We're not trying to throw shade or disrespect to them.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But then ideology, DEI, and the politics of the Democrat Party have so infused with them. I don't know if you can even tell the difference anymore from a political entity to one that is really concerned about the welfare of Black families, children, and education. On the outside, they say those things, but we know from history, just looking back, how entwined they are with the political parties. Right. And so IFCA is really non-political in its foundations and what we do. We have a moral stance with God as our center, right? And the Constitution, and putting forth policies, research, networks, and connections that really are going to benefit and turn around the community. And we can do this because we've got Neil and Kevin, who have written some phenomenal books, awesome policy papers that are going to come out of this institute, and just the work that we plan to do by establishing chapters, bringing in membership, and really creating an institute, as you said, a place for an alternative, right? Because it's not like, we're not trying to say that those social ills have gone away, right? They have been systematized, they have been institutionalized. And as in like your last book that you wrote, Kevin, about the plantation, there has been a mindset for such a long, long time, right? That in order to adjust and shift it, it's going to take some time. And when we even think about from the time of slavery to the time that the Black family and Black communities and Black Wall Street and Black businesses were doing well, families were whole and were together, two-parent households, divorce was low, reading levels were high. They were, even in segregated schools, we were still learning. We were still creating our own businesses, had our dentists and our attorneys and people who worked in our communities. And then policies came in, and Neil, you talk about this a lot, about how the social policies that came in, especially with welfare, and social workers, drastically changed the Black community and brought it to what we see it as now. And it is possible to restore that. But it's going to have to take people who are not tied to the political party, that are not tied to the victim mentality of the things that have happened, because you've had that opportunity. I'll tell you, right? You've had that opportunity for the past 60 odd years. And we've made some gains, but we've kind of just stalled out. And what we're doing now is going down. right? And the water is stale, it is just stagnant, and you're still trying to find fresh water in a stagnant pond. It's like, okay, no, we've got to disrupt. We just got to go a whole new way. And we believe that EBLM is set to do that with our Institute for Family and Community Advancement. So we have a report out that we just released, The State of Black Life in America. You can find that on our website, everyblm.com. You can go to our blog and find it. And we'll be putting it out. If you're on any of our social media platforms, you can find that. You can also sign up to our newsletter where we've been sharing a lot of information about it. So you'll be hearing more about it in the upcoming days. We're excited. We're excited about what this opportunity offers for us. So I want to close out here. Neil, Kevin, you have any last words you want to say?
No, but I just thought I'd add this. So Kamala Harris and Joe Biden both endorsed Karen Bass for mayor, but you'll note that the LA Times did too, but the LA Times just published a retraction about it, saying that they were already saying, oh, what's interesting is Elon Musk was campaigning for the person running against her. So you can see, because he thought that he was a better deal, right? So now of course, Elon has left LA. This was 2 years ago. 3 years ago almost now. But it's just interesting to watch that whole dynamic, where, she got the blessing from above, but the local people, I think Gavin Newsom actually did not say anything about her at the time, but maybe he had hands in both camps, but
yeah.
But just thought, we got to change this. Just to come back to the IFCA, we've got to change the way things are done. You can't do the same old. You'll get the same old result. That's what lunacy is, doing the same thing, expecting a different result, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. So we're going to bring a different result, different process. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be back again in 2 weeks. So God bless. Have a good night.